Good evening. I'll now call the Cannon Falls City Council meeting for Tuesday, November the 19th to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Holst.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Mattson.
Here.
McCusker.
Yes.
Schobloom.
Here.
And Mayor Robinson.
Here. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to everybody that has come to the meeting tonight. This time, the chair will take a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda's approved. Moves us to item 5, public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the minutes, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak on things not on the agenda? If not, we will move on to item 6, which is a presentation from Northland Securities on our debt management study.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Tammy Umdahl from Northland Securities. Northland was hired to complete a debt study for the city, and I'm here this evening to present on it. And before I start, I was mentioning I had locked my keys in my car. The door blew shut beforehand, and one of your officers helped me, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. With that said, let's see. Oops, it's
Is the mic on there?
There's a button at the bottom there.
It is green. I will lean into it and speak louder.
There you go.
There we go. If you haven't received, the city does have a copy of the full report. Tonight, I'm just going to have a couple handfuls of slides to go over to summarize that, and then at the end, really take any questions that the council may have regarding that report. I'll go over the study overview and the approach that we used. I'll talk about conclusions and recommendations, most importantly, and then touch on the sources of revenue for repayment of debt service, and then any observations and questions. And before I get started, and if you had a chance to read the report, you will know that the city's debt service funds are in very sound financial condition. So tonight I'm really here to talk about some opportunities as you go forward in managing some of the resources within. As far as the overview and approach, it's really meant to be the study an ongoing guide. The models that were used will be turned over to the city. The city will be able to update those as you have actual receipt and payment of debt service going forward, and to use that as an ongoing tool. The key factors with respect to the study and ongoing management is the timing and the amount of the collection of the special assessments. For the city of Cannon Falls, you are in very good condition with respect to your special assessments. Unlike some other cities that I do these reports for, you do not have large deferred special assessment balances outstanding. You do not have any material amount of delinquent special assessments, so that is not an issue for this city with respect to your debt service funds. The financial performance of the enterprise funds, the utility funds, is key. And you have managed those funds, but it's important to keep in mind that those rates will continue to have to be set at a level that's sufficient, not only to meet operations and annual capital, but also ongoing debt service that is supported by those funds. And then last, future debt issuance plans. While this study did not look at capital plans and how to structure that, the study does show where there are opportunities as you plan for new capital plans that will be debt financed. Conclusions: property tax levy has been sufficient to cover debt service. There are no interfund loans or transfers that are made at year end. Current, as I mentioned, special assessments is estimated to be paid in full and on time as part of the study. Now, if something were to change in the future, that would impact those results, but your staff will continue to monitor that. And then last, the use of tax increment financing revenue, TIF, is slightly different than what the city had planned when debt was issued, and that is accounted for in this fund, but it doesn't present a shortfall. It just relies on some other revenue sources for the payment of the debt. of that debt, including water utility revenue. Recommendations: the annual tax levy for debt service should be carefully managed. And here, when I mentioned opportunity at the beginning, rather than looking at the need to increase it, I believe that there is some potential in the fund that accounts for the 2011 A bonds to potentially reduce that projected levy that you see in the report as you go forward, provided that the special assessment revenues are collected in the amounts and on time as projected, and that the utility revenues do provide the support that is anticipated in the plan. And at this reason, I have no reason to not believe that would be the case. The annual special assessment collections should be monitored, and the report should be updated annually to see if there is any changes in those projections. And then last, as I mentioned, the utility funds continue to monitor those rates, and it's my understanding you are doing that, or your staff is doing that on a regular basis to make sure that they are set at levels that you can meet that. And that last point before I switch to the next slide, the reason that's so important is about 65% of Cannon Falls outstanding debt, existing debt, is supported by utility revenue, so those sources need to be sufficient to make those payments. Using the debt study model as an ongoing tool for management of debt, and here, while there's a printed report, which is nice, it's really meant to serve you on an ongoing basis, and I've talked to your finance director about that, and that the model and the tools will be turned over to the city so you can continue to do that. And at last point, as mentioned, I believe there's some capacity to look at reducing those tax levies for that 2011 A bond in the future. A pie chart here that's also in the report, labeled as chart 2 in the report. This shows the original estimated source of payment of the $21 million plus of principal and interest that is outstanding and payable between years 2013 and 2014. And you can go around the pie and see as a percent what were the sources of revenue to pay that debt. And special assessments, I'll highlight that one, was estimated at 12% for those future years at time of issuance. And really the only, and property tax at 18%. This next pie chart, same concept, but this is looking based upon current revenue projections. How does the city project or anticipate paying back that debt? Special assessment proportion drops from 12 to 11%, and that's because you've had some prepayments that have provided some cash in those funds. And then the other difference that comes from with respect to the cash is tax increment finance had originally been anticipated as a source for payment of debt during that future period. That is no longer going to be a planned source. Instead, it will rely on cash that is available in other revenue sources. So those are really the only two differences, not areas of concern, but I just wish to highlight them. Property tax levy for debt service. The debt study assumes an average tax levy of about $360,000 between 2013 and 2022. In no year does that estimate exceed $400,000, and it actually drops beginning in year 2020 based upon current outstanding debt, down from $400,000 to $300,000. Again, as you look at financing new projects, that gives you some room to look at tax levy support. Factors that will impact the tax levy for debt service, again, timing, collection of special assessment revenue, and the utility funds. If for whatever reason the city decides that you aren't going to transfer, provide some of that support to the general obligation debt, it would require tax levies above what is shown in the report. A chart that shows those figures that I talked about with property tax levies, so you can see in beginning in year 2014 to 2019, just around or just under $400,000 is projected for annual debt service for tax levy for debt service. And then in 2020, that's based upon scheduled principal and interest payments supported by debt. It actually drops down to less than $300,000 beginning in that year. Special assessment revenue for debt service that I've mentioned. At the end of 2012, in your financial report, the city reported $1.3 million of outstanding special assessments. I would note again, for Cannon Falls, your amount of delinquent special assessments is insignificant. It was $30,000 as reported at that time. Given new projects that you've approved and the special assessments related thereto, the projected estimated amount at the year end 2014 is $1.65 million of special assessments. And again, the study assumes those will be paid on time and in the amounts that were certified. The balance outstanding by year 2022 is $550,000. So really that will begin to be paid off during that time period as you had planned. The actual amounts and estimates, of course, may vary if something were to happen with those payments by the property owners. This just shows, beginning in 2014, as you've scheduled those payments when they were certified, the decline in the outstanding balance, and these are year-end amounts. So you go from the close to 1.5 million down to about 500,000 in year 2022. This slide I put in here because I had mentioned this at the beginning because I think it's important to note and recognize that Cannon Falls, you have no internal loans or borrowing to cover debt service payments. That's something that I'm seeing more and more in cities due to the decline or the special assessment revenues not coming in as cities had anticipated when they approved projects and financed those with debt that was supported by special assessments. So this is a positive thing for your city. You are not relying on any funds from the utility funds, for example, to meet debt cash deficits. Other revenue for debt service, again, enterprise revenue is key. It's about supports about 65% of your outstanding principal and interest payments that are due on existing or will be due on existing debt service and the continuing monitoring thereof. And in conclusion, based upon the study that Northland did, in my opinion, your debt service funds are in excellent financial condition. If anything, I think you have some opportunities as you continue to manage and monitor those revenues to maybe adjust your tax levies a little bit going forward. With that, Mr. Mayor, I would be happy to answer any questions or comments that the council may have.
Well, anybody have any questions?
I got just a quick one. I met with Aaron for about an hour today on all this stuff, and I told Aaron that we got to change our rules down here. We can't have two tax accounting things in one night. But since you're here, I'm glad to ask you a question. One of our concerns on the council has always been we talk about lowering our reserve, and in some ways we want to have a good reserve to have a good credit rating, but on the other hand, I feel we're probably overtaxing a little bit to have that good reserve. So I guess one of my questions for you would be is if the council would lower our reserve, say from like 50 to 45, is this something that you think will affect our bond rating and credit rating later on? Or is it, I'm sure you look at the whole overall picture, so I'm hoping it doesn't have that big effect, but does that have a big effect in our ratings?
I'd be happy to answer that question. Certainly the rating agencies like to see as large a fund balance as possible because they're rating the bonds with respect to your ability to pay that back and the protection of the bondholders. In my opinion, in our experience with the rating agencies, especially with some changes that they have made recently, both at S&P and Moody's in their process for ratings, is that, and I will assume that you do, and George would know this answer, I don't, you probably have a fund balance policy. I'll look to Vanell. You have a fund balance policy. It is important with respect to your rating that you are in compliance with that policy. The fact that you may drop down a little bit if you are far in excess of that, and I stand before you tonight, I don't know the answer if you are. But if you are, if you decide to bring that into closer compliance with your policy, that in and of itself is not such a huge negative with rating agencies, and if it's planned and it's not unanticipated drawdown. But if you begin to look at, well, I think we have some needs that can cause us to drop below our policy, those are red flags for the rating agencies, and it becomes more of a concern that it would have a negative impact on your rating.
I know at one point we were at like over 80%. We still ended up with our AAA rating. So I guess, my thing was, it'd be nice if we could lower it a little bit more. We've got some tax revenue that's gonna turn around next year from the last 2 years that's coming in now on a development that's been going on. So I guess my thinking is we could have 1 year where we lowered it a little bit, just to help out. And we're still gonna be okay the next year, it's actually gonna go up. So, but we don't wanna do that if it's gonna affect our AAA rating, I think it is. But it also is something we've talked about. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just follow up with a comment.
Yep.
The other thing, I made an assumption that I shouldn't have. When you talk about drawdown of fund balance or use of that, big difference between use for one time, such as capital outlay, versus if you use it to support ongoing operations for a 1 year period. So just an additional comment for you.
Did your, some of the charts you showed us on projections, did that include the fact that we are going to have ongoing projects? Our capital plan has us basically every other year doing infrastructure projects throughout the city. So I was wondering if that was it shown on your...
This study did not include looking at structuring for new debt, and that's why I made the comment as you look at, you go back to the property tax levy for debt service. This is for existing debt, so as you issue debt for new projects, really looking at, how do you manage that, and given your levy for operations as well. And we had talked to Aaron and Linnell about that and believe that, there is opportunity there in the future years, and also, as I mentioned, with the 2011 A bonds, some opportunity to reduce the tax levy for existing debt as you go forward.
What was that opportunity on the 2011 A bonds?
The 2011 A bonds is that due to the timing of special assessments and where you started, I won't have that in front of me, that you have a fund, a cash balance in that fund that would allow you to begin to decrease the amount that you're levying on an annual basis and still have sufficient cash to meet your coverage and also to pay annual principal and interest payments. But that is all dependent on the special assessment revenue coming in as projected. So that's why it may be something you look at over the next few years as you start to realize some of that special assessment revenue on time and in the amount anticipated.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you.
That moves us on to item 7, the consent agenda. Items on this area of the agenda may be adopted or they may be removed and placed on the business area of the agenda for discussion purposes before approving. For the folks at home, I will read the consent agenda. Item A is adjusting correct claims for the accounting period ending November the 15th, 2013. Item B is the meeting minutes for the November 5th, 2013 City Council meeting. Item C, Resolution 2046, accepting a donation from the Cannon Falls Fire Department Relief Association to the Ambulance Department. Item D, add member to the reserve program. Item E, application for payment number 1 for Trunk Highway 19 utility crossing. And item F, application for payment number 6 for the East Side Improvement Project. Are there any items anyone wishes to bring down?
E and F.
Okay, item E will become item 8B. And item F, the application for payment number 6 will become item 8C. Are there any others? If not, the chair will take a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted, minus items E, the application for payment number 1, and item F, application for payment number 6 for the East Side Improvement Project.
So moved.
I'll second that.
A motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Moves us on to council business this evening. The first one will be the 52 North Stoplight Access Request.
Okay. As you see in the council packet, we included the information received from the city as far as requests from the property owners that are adjacent to 52 on both the east and west side along for the most part, that north, between the south and the north stoplights. If the council remembers, the original project that was approved was for an interchange that was to be located south of the current south light, and then for an overpass that was going to be located at basically the site of the north lights. When project funding became available, there wasn't enough to do the whole project, so at that time it was decided that if we could at least get the interchange done, that was the main priority, so we would get that done. And then it was discussed that the north overpass would be put in when MnDOT determined that there was enough traffic on the interchange to justify it. So the estimate, I think, right now is about 2019, but again, like I said, it's gonna be determined by the traffic counts on the interchange. So we've got the request from the property owners in that area that instead of shutting that north access off completely at the lights, to allow right-in access off of 52 heading both directions, just to allow for highway traffic to get to those businesses for now, instead of having to use the interchange and come back. So that's kind of where we are with the request. We have a number of the business owners here, and we also have a representative from MnDOT here as well to answer any questions on it. So.
Okay. I'd just like to say, I read all the requests, and after reading it and reviewing it, I did go drive both accesses on 52 here in Cannon Falls by the North Light, and then I also went to Hampton and looked at that project they did there, where they kept that one turnoff on for people to be able to go in to the restaurant and to the gas station and the motel there. And the on and offs are already there for our project. I mean, it'd save the, without putting in an overpass, I mean, we're going to be saving $3 million. I mean, because that's going to cost at least that much to do that overpass. I mean, and just blocking off the re-entry way going north and south onto 52. The one up in Hampton is so much closer to where the on-ramp is, and it's a blind curve almost coming up from underneath that overpass that's there going north, that it only makes good sense to do that here in Cannon Falls and to eliminate that overpass.
And I would basically concur. I don't see where it would hurt anything. We would save a little bit of money on the project, and more importantly, to help out our businesses, because having a new interchange is going to be great, but access for those businesses is really going to drive their business down, and I hate to see that, because then you might go out of business. Some people might lose jobs because of lack of stuff. So I would support that, although I'm very interested in what MnDOT has to say on that.
And just with that also, I know safety is a big issue, but if we're going to do it in certain areas, we need to do it all over the state and be consistent with it. I mean, that's what my message to MnDOT is be consistent. Let's just don't do it in one small town and not do it other places when I think it'd be safer here, because you can see what you're doing compared to the blind intersection going the other way. But
Jim wanted to speak.
okay, any other?
Is the MnDOT person here?
Yeah, we've got him here also.
Oh, okay.
And then we've got some of the other.
Yeah, I
folks that
do
want
have
to
a
speak.
comment, but I think somebody raised their hand out there.
Yep.
Yeah, Jim.
Jim, did you want to come up?
Mr. Mayor, if it's appropriate, I'd like to just add a few comments on behalf of the property owners at 2452. My name's Jim Burkhardt. I'm not here really as an attorney, but I'm here to try to summarize the group's opinions rather than have multiple people from the group get up and speak with you. We have business owners from McDonald's, Super American, and Country Kitchen here this evening. I was here about, time goes, but 3, 4, 5 years ago on behalf of the same group of businessmen, and the discussion was at that time, where should the interchange be located? And for a variety of reasons, it ended up where it currently is. At the time, I understood that MnDOT was concerned to place this interchange too close to the Highway 19 interchange. And while the people that I was speaking on behalf of recognized that I think what was failed to take into consideration is the real world as it then existed. In a perfect world, and especially if we were forming a new city, I imagine we'd like to have overpasses at the south end and the north end of the city. But by locating the interchange where it now is, it's going to create a dead zone, especially at the 2452 intersection. It may seem as if the people I'm speaking on behalf of are Johnny-come-latelys, and it's 10 minutes after 12 and it's too late. But I wanted to remind you that we were here several years ago and made our pitch. It wasn't successful, but we made the pitch. The people that I'm speaking on behalf of, they've added it up, and there's about between 250 and 300 employees that will be affected. The first thing that you have to know or have to agree on using your own common sense is that the traveling public on 52, if they can't see a service road parallel to 52 with an immediate highway commercial business location there visually, simply aren't going to stop. And I think many of us know when we've gone north on 52, and every once in a while we might have pulled off at Coates if our eye caught a low gas station price. Well, since the interchange at Coates, I've never stopped at that gas station since. My eye catches the price, and it may be a few cents less, but I just don't stop. It's been anticipated that many of our businesses will fail. You have the papers in front of you, and I won't go through it, but many of them receive well over 50% of their gross business off the highway. And again, we have no statistics to prove it until sometime in the future when it'll become obvious, but they're just going to lose the greater proportion of that business. And by losing that, that will put them under. The area in question, as you well know, has gone through a lot of stress in terms of, after 20, 25 years of discussion, the city finally annexed down there. With the annexation came the sewer and water project, and there's heavy assessments. I noted the chart of the assessments and how our assessments are in good order and relatively little default. But if these businesses go, and I think of Super America, I think of McDonald's, I think of Country Kitchen and others, the bank perhaps, if they have a loan, will repossess, but then the marketability for any use other than a tear down use is suspect. And then the question is, there at least will be a temporary multi-year default on the city assessments because these businesses simply can't afford it, or ultimately perhaps the city will end up owning that property. We think it's as dire as that. Now I know 52 is a dangerous road. I know that they're taking out the stoplights. I know that with the south stoplight gone, traffic will be at speed there, 55 miles an hour or whatever. And I know it's not ideal, and nobody wants more accidents on 52. The group that I represent is not proposing that there be a crossover, if you will, between all four lanes. That I think is an unacceptable danger without stoplights, and the whole point was the stoplights are gone. By the way, what I call the bump over bridge that was proposed or is still possible at this location does nobody any good. We can get to Turkey Peterson and get our organic turkeys quicker, but there's no on or off ramp there. It does nobody any good. The service drives, as you've all seen the plans, are remarkable in that they loop so much, and of necessity perhaps. But there just isn't a visual aspect to have people off 52 come to these businesses that after all have been there, in some cases for several decades, they counted on this, and if they don't get reasonable access for their clientele, maybe that's the price of progress, but it's an awfully steep price that some people are going to have to pay with their decades-old business. So we realize first that the city may or may not have the best relationship with MnDOT. They're a great outfit, but they sometimes can be difficult to speak to or get in contact with. And I know that because I represent people in the condemnation, and that's been a difficult process. Second, MnDOT is highly concerned with safety, and so is everybody else. And I realize that if 52 is thought to be converted to more of what I would call a freeway, that these constant off and ons are a hazard. We would eliminate the County 24, if I could say east-west, if that's the right direction. You wouldn't go all the way across, so that would eliminate itself. But even an off and an on isn't perhaps ideal in a freeway concept. But that's the only thing that we have to propose. What we're asking of the city, because I don't think the city controls this at all. When I was here 3-4 years ago, I asked the question, it was City Council, Goodhue County, and MnDOT, who controlled the siting of the new overpass. And the MnDOT official said, well, the City Council does. But it was also commented, if the City Council didn't put it where we wanted, you aren't going to get any money, or at least from MnDOT. And I understand the reasons why, and I think we all do, the overpass was located where it ended up to be. But I hope we all understand what a negative effect that it's going to have on several dozen highway commercial businesses at the 52 intersection at County, what is it, 46 or whatever it is. So we're asking for a resolution or a sentiment, a consensus of the council to request MnDOT to study the issue, to at least hear the people out. Some of the people I speak for have written MnDOT long since and of course gotten no reply. We would hope that it could be looked at and studied. We're not asking for another $30 million ramp there. The bump over won't do us any good. That's beside the point. So we're asking for an exit. Ideally, it would be both an exit and an entrance, but at the minimum, if it was an exit, up in Hampton, that's at least an exit there. And then, of course, the party has to go north on a visible service road and get back on. Here, if we had just an exit, perhaps some people would stop once or twice, but they may not stop again because they would have to wind their way around and find their way back on, which would be inconvenient. But an exit is at least better than nothing. So I won't go through, and perhaps some of the people that are here, maybe I've omitted something, but we're asking you to keep in mind the 250 to 300 people that we think will be affected, the couple dozen businesses, many of which we think will be affected, and just the inverse effect of creating what I would call a dead zone there. It's not exactly like it, but it's somewhat akin to Hastings when they eliminated their old bridge and put a bridge over on Hastings Old Main Street, just became a flyover. This will be an area which it'll be terribly difficult to get to for anybody off the highway. So if the council would consider a resolution or a request of MnDOT to at least meet with the people concerned and to at least consider if there's any solution that would be consistent with safety but also allow these businesses a fighting chance to survive, it would be much appreciated. Thanks much.
Thanks, Jim. This time I'd like to have MnDOT come up, if I may, and so that we can get something from MnDOT.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor. I'm Greg Paulson, and I'm the Assistant District Engineer for Program Delivery for our MnDOT office out of Rochester that covers all southeast Minnesota here, the 11 counties here. And did appreciate the opportunity to come and listen to the comments tonight, and I do certainly appreciate the concern and some of the comments about potential impacts to businesses with the project taking place. I know Councilman Duncan was involved in the team that studied this, and Greg Isaacson, the county engineer from Goodhue County, who's seated here in the first row, was also very involved. I would say that the study process, as Councilman Duncan knows, was a pretty thorough and I would say complicated process. This was not an easy project, not a simple solution that I think was real evident where the best place for an interchange was. Of course, part of the need for it, and the primary need was safety, but also the secondary need was mobility on 52. As you all know, Highway 52, there was a big overall corridor study, and the ultimate vision that I think folks really up and down the corridor have embraced and supported is the vision for 52 to turn to a freeway. And so when this project was envisioned and studied, that was really part of the goal of the project, was to eliminate signals, improve the safety, and also to improve the mobility on the corridor. And as a part of that, to have this segment become a freeway segment, and to meet that long-term 52 vision of converting Highway 52 from a expressway with grade access points to access-controlled freeway segment. And of course, that's really what we've been doing, over the last 10, 15 years, and I think we've made quite a few strides towards that goal. I do appreciate the mayor's comment about treating communities the same, and I think as a MnDOT official, I really take that view very strongly, and I work with dozens of communities across the district, and I do feel very much as I work with the communities that it's important to treat people fairly and consistently with how we make decisions. First of all, the project in Hampton, there are probably some little bit of differences there. The one thing I would say is that the access point, the right-in access that was ultimately determined to stay in place, is left in as an interim measure. The overall project design up in that community is the interchange at Highway 50 and an interchange at County Road 47 with frontage road along the east side connecting 47 and Highway 50. What happened in that project, the full project really wasn't built with the full interchange or the full frontage road system built on the east side of the highway. So if you look at it, when you look at southbound, that access was totally removed in that segment. There's no access there. That's probably really the most similar to the northbound segment here on the Cannon Falls side, the side that has the, mostly the town of Hampton with, a full local road system built in place there, which I would say is pretty similar to what's happening on the east side of 52 on northbound. The east side on Hampton, which the interim access was allowed to stay in, because that full full frontage road was not completed. I think there's, that's one piece. It was left as an interim measure until the frontage road was completed. In this case, really, all of the frontage road system is being completed, and there is a parallel route along, County Road 24 along the east side of the roadway. So that's a difference. I think the other difference is in fact this access is a little bit closer, not a lot, but it is about 200 feet closer. I don't think that's a key point, but I think the other aspect I think that's a little bit different is, that right in up there is only really accessing a limited number of businesses and parcels. I think there's 3 businesses located up there. And this location, I think, could potentially generate a lot more traffic. And when you look at our design guidance, it really would say that we should not allow any kind of access within a half a mile of the end of an acceleration ramp. And it's really because of the safety, because you're going to have that conflict of people that are trying to merge onto the highway, people trying to get off at that at-grade access. And it really creates a safety hazard. And when you look at the 2 locations are probably pretty similar. Like I said, I think Cannon's probably a couple hundred feet closer, but pretty similar locations. But I think the potential for more traffic using it, since it does access more businesses and actually potentially more trips into the city, I think leaving an at-grade right in there would really create a safety hazard out on 52 with the conflict with the merging traffic with the ramp there.
With that, a lot of times with that though, it's no different than trying to go drive in Woodbury on 694 in those places where you're going to turn off and make the loop and somebody's coming back on.
Or any freeway in the
It's the same type of situation, that you're causing.
No, there's not.
You got people accelerating and people slowing down to turn off.
But there's usually a mile spacing between ramps when you get on the freeway system, like up in the Twin Cities you're on and off ramps. The other aspect I would say is, this project, and Aaron talked about the funding for it, and of course, the MnDOT partnered with the city and county to apply for the funding on it, and it was a Safety and Mobility Grant, or they call it a SAM grant. And, really the basis of that project is really what we're building out there, and that's a project that got funded. And I do think that leaving an at-grade access point, or even if it's just an exit point, diminishes the value of the rest of that project and diminishes the safety on 52 on that highway.
I disagree too, but I got a question for you though.
So anyway, this was done on a statewide basis. We competed, and that's the project we submitted. So
Okay,
I think that creates an issue.
Then build our flyover then, because that's,
That was not part of the submittal, and
well, that's when we talked about this project, that's what was designed. It was both intersections.
part of it is we studied, Mayor, we studied the project. We first studied the overpass at a local request, and it was really looked at, and we stated it during the study. It might end up being 100% locally funded. I think as we did this study, we said it depends upon how the traffic study came out. The traffic study did justify that there'd be a benefit from that overpass to 52, because, by state law, we can only spend money, state trunk highway money, on the trunk highway. So for us to participate in that overpass, there has to be shown a trunk highway benefit. So as part of that study, we did look at that. And
My recollection is a little bit different than that the overpass there at 2452 was agreed to, and all of a sudden there just wasn't money.
Well,
And then
it-
further down the line, it was, well, if the traffic flows at the interchange are higher, we'll do it.
And then you built the
But
interchange.
things got changed a lot. If
Well-
you recall, some of those meetings got quite heated.
Councilman, when I'm going back to the very first study of when that was looked at as a possibility of going in and the justification for it. And it was based on the traffic. Anyway, I'm saying that it was justified for MnDOT to participate, but it was based on, really that overpass was there because of a need when there was the west side of the Cannon Falls was developed there. west
As
of 52.
as I think back, I recall feeling we were misled as a city in regard to that overpass. But be that as it may, I still don't see a reason why we can't, on an interim basis, leave the right turn. They did it for Hampton, but you didn't, and you did it only on the one side of Hampton. And what happened to the business on the other side of Hampton, on the other side of 52? It's out of business. I'm worried that's what's gonna happen to some of these folks.
Because right now, there are some businesses out here that are closed. We don't need all these, these poor people out here.
Would it be possible for MnDOT to look at like a safety, I don't know what you guys use for looking at stuff like that, but is it possible to do some sort of just a mini review of it to say, okay, if we were to leave only exit, right-offs, what impact would that have? Is there a way to do that, to that way there's some quantifiable way, one way or the other, that shows that it's a problem?
I think that, there is ways you can do some of that. Probably what's difficult about it is what's the traffic level gonna be? It's probably a difficult thing to estimate. It's not a case like, Hampton where you just had a couple businesses. I do think there's a potential for quite a few people to use that want to get into town quicker than, say, going through the overall interchange, the roundabouts, and those types of things. So, like I said, I think the big difference here is that was put into as an interim measure until there was a full frontage road system built, and here it really,
Would it be
we built
possible
the whole
to do this as an
frontage road
interim
system.
until the overpass goes in? Or, would that be a justifiable point?
No, I don't think the overpass really relates to the access issue. The overpass is really about the local traffic connectivity. It's not about getting traffic on and off. And even that comment was made, it wasn't gonna serve getting traffic on and off the highway or serve the trips to.
No, but it would still have to make it easier to access those businesses, especially if you're coming, say, from town, you want to get to the other side of 52 to, and any of the west side businesses. There's got to be some, it won't be the direct off 52 access, I would assume, but the thought of that overpass was that it would provide another access point so people don't have to strictly go that way. So
Because if you look at the drawing behind you right there, you close that off and you don't put the flyover over 52, then you're gonna just jam up all that area because people trying to get back and forth, or you won't have any traffic at all trying to go over there because there won't be any businesses there.
I'd like to make a few comments.
Sure.
First of all, I want to thank you for coming and participating in this tonight. It probably would have been pretty easy to tell Aaron to send me the notes and I'll look at them. So I really appreciate it. Appreciate Greg being here from the county too. But I have been involved in this from the beginning. And at the beginning, I was on the planning commission, later the council. I do differ a little bit with what Jim said out there. Is when it was first brought up, that the overpass was gonna be where the Cannonball is, or the 24 crossing. Then the talk came up that it was gonna move south. There was different meetings on this. There was a meeting about the preferred spot I think the preferred spot was at the Cannonball. The state recommended going south. The advantage to going south is that we had an open area to develop and work with, so how could we tie it all back together? The crossover bridge was an important part of this. The reason it was an important part because you could be heading south from the cities, and you could see the signs of the Country Kitchen, our Subway, Super America, Cannonball. You could go up and hit that overpass and go off. If you got mixed up, didn't know what way to turn, you could actually come back. You could go over that bridge and get to our businesses. It was a big part of moving it south, and it was a big part of the structure to tie the businesses back in to the new businesses that are probably going to be out there. So that overpass was very important, the one over 24. Now, most of these people have gotten a hold of me about this right-hand turn lane thing, and they've also talked about that we aren't getting the overpass. They also talked about a right-hand blend lane coming in. I told them I am going to try to be optimistic and hopeful that something can be done, but what is the least amount we can agree to? The one thing that I didn't like is that being involved in this, when you came along and you moved it south, and then you came along and said the bridge ain't going in till 2019 or something, we had to put up the same amount of money. There was no discount to us because the bridge wasn't going in. So the city has contributed money and contributed more money than actually we got. So to me, that is an issue as a council member. I somehow feel the state and us misrepresented the people on what was going to be done there. So there is an issue with money with me too. So the other thing is that I asked these people, I think there's a good chance the bridge is not going to go in. I think it should go in because I think it's planned. It makes everything tie together better. If they go on what's going to be our future County Road 24 going out to the school, they made a mistake, they can come back, they can get down to our businesses. If they don't know which way to go out of there, they can go across that bridge, go back down the other side and tie in. I do not see the safety risk with a right-hand turn lane. So I said to the people, and the business people I've talked to have told me that they feel there's going to be a 50% drop in their business as soon as the overpass is up and running. So it is going to be a big effect. I asked them would a right-hand turn lane help? If we can't get anything, can we at least get a right-hand turn lane? And they all said they'd rather have the blend-in lane, they'd rather have the right turn lane, and they'd also rather have the bridge. But if anything out of this, could we get the right-hand turn lane coming in? Now, when I think about this whole project here, it's amazing to me that I've lived long enough that I've seen the effects of things now. And I think I gotta explain this a little bit. It's taking time, but in 1965, I worked at the local gas station in high school. At that particular time, we had 5 gas stations downtown. We had five families operate them gas stations. It was a wonderful experience for me as a high school student, and I got the garage to work on my car, so it was a heck of a benefit. The point is I'm making, then the new highway went through out there. The one Thanksgiving, my boss asked me if I just open up that station for 3 hours, he'd pay me double time on Thanksgiving. I finally had to close it at 2 o'clock, and I had cars clear past the church all day. I finally had to just lock up and leave. Now, those businesses are no longer there. We don't have a gas station in town anymore, except one on the end here. But none of them that existed then are there anymore. So this highway stuff really affects things. Some of these people that went into business out on the highway out there are friends of mine and went in there 25 years ago thinking that their investment is going to be a 25-year investment, and they have done that. A lot of their thinking is, now I'm finally got things paid for, and now I can retire and be comfortable here, keep the jobs going. Well, now the flow is stopping, and so their thing is, are they going to reinvest and move out by the overpass and start over again? Probably not. Our mall was built out there because of the highway. A lot of our restaurants and stuff were all built because of that highway, and now it's changing again. So the bridge not being there on 24 is a big deal. But these people would be grateful, and I can't see the safety issue of a right-hand off turn. They feel that that would help at least probably 25% of their businesses. If you do get that right-hand turn lane off, the good part of it is that some of these businesses on their highway and can get the signage out there to get them to look that way anyway. And if there is a quick right-hand turn, they're going to probably come in. But if there isn't, they're going to continue on and probably take the Hampton right-hand turn and go to that restaurant up there. So this is a big thing. And I understand it, and I understand change is hard. I understand for you, these meetings and stuff must just get overwhelming at times. But we have been growing here as a town even through this slow period we've had. Cannon Falls has done a lot in the last 2 years to probably contribute to this problem because of the good work our EDA has done, and because of our location, we're growing probably without even doing anything.
Dave's fault, huh?
Right. So I'm saying this is a big issue, and I wish there was some way for you guys to reconsider this. If we can't get anything, at least get us the right-hand turn lanes off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Greg, I got a question for you too. I agree with Leroy on this because we're the same age. And I remember when all this happened, the same thing. I have it down in my notes, if no one else said that. But when is this project from Rochester up? What is the end date, supposedly? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that's anyone's guess. It's really
it's
dependent
gonna be
upon
years.
funding and,
Right.
yes, yeah.
why not just do it and, put this in and maybe when it's done, okay. I mean,
Well, I think the bottom line still is
I know,
the
but-
safety issue. And I think what you're not
but see, I
maybe
can't see some of
realizing is
this.
the conflicts of
I know, but the
how
safety,
close that exit is to traffic.
I don't know, in the
accelerating
cities, I'm
getting
gonna
on.
tell you, it's worse. I was in charge of buses up there, and I'll tell you, what a nightmare. But here's another thing, if you exit, now my age caught up with me. What were you talking, God darn. Well, safety, granted, is a big thing, but this County Road 86, or is 88, 86, right? You guys come up with some harebrained idea about if you wanted to go north, or you really wanted to go south, you had to go north, get over your lanes, circle around, and go. Now, you tell me that's safe.
The J,
It isn't.
J turn.
Yeah.
turns.
Yeah.
I wish I could sit someplace and dream up something, everybody says it's safe.
There's,
It isn't that way.
I think there are, I beg to differ opinion on that too. I mean,
Oh.
there have been a number of those built in the state that have improved safety, and especially when you're comparing full access versus, kind of dealing with one lane of traffic at a time. So
When
that,
they were working Highway 19, they had somewhat of a deal here.
That's exactly what it was.
That was a nightmare.
And with those two, you're crossing 2 lanes of traffic
Yeah.
in the half-mile stretch to get over to
Right.
get turned around to go back
Right.
south.
I'm not familiar with that design. It's coming out of our
Yeah, I
metro
know,
district,
I know.
but the,
It's,
you know, the design, we're actually working on one of those on Highway 14 project, and I do think that, you know, in the right place, that they're a good safety measure, and some of the things that we're looking at, and I know we looked at it a little bit on the County 9 one too, was instead of having people get on and then move over 2 lanes, is they just go directly into kind of an inside lane to do that U-turn. So I'm not sure if that's part of the design on 86 or not, but, you know, we
On
do
the
think
86,
that.
You know, we talked about, we assumed at that time, 5 years ago, we're gonna get an overpass there too.
Right.
So if you do wanna get into a safety issue, the neat part of the thing with 86, if that overpass would've been there, we could've brought Highway 20 right into that overpass and got rid of the truck traffic from our industrial park coming through downtown. There was a lot of reasons to put an overpass at 86. And if we want to get into the safety issues, the J-turn out there is probably not a safety thing. It's gonna, you know, be more of an inconvenience than anything, and you are gonna have to blend back in there. So we're not talking about bringing on-ramps on here and blending in. We're talking about at least just get us to be able to blend off.
So, I mean, Greg's answer is that there's just no way that MnDOT's going to consider this, or is it something that we could try to sit down and talk about, and can we try to run models based on estimates? Can we try to do something to figure out how this compared to others is different, and, you know, what impact would it have on the traffic? I mean, is there some way we can, or is it just no? I mean, it's good, so we know where we stand is, you know, is the best way to
I
go
would
with it.
say it's just no. I mean, we do not think this is a good addition to the project.
Our traffic coming into Cannon Falls has got to be just as much or equal, if not maybe more, than the north end of Zumbrota, County 67, where they just redid that. You got the right off lane there, and then you can take off there and go north. And now they just this summer finished up the crossover where you can turn coming southbound. You can cross over that lane of traffic. What was the point of that if that's the case?
Well, again, I mean, it's, you know.
You're still
and you're
crossing that
talking
northbound lane of traffic
about-
just
Talking
with
about
that.
different levels of safety measures. You know, here was a, you know, we've got, what, $18 million investment to convert this into a freeway segment versus, you know, $500,000 to try to improve safety at one intersection. So there's different levels of investment that were involved, and there's different levels of return on safety. So,
Like Highway 52, I used to drive to the cities every day. And I know the traffic now, which is unbelievable. But what do you see for increasing traffic over the next 5 years? I mean, that traffic moves.
Speedway.
right?
It's crazy.
Right.
And, you know, but I still can't see why we can't have a right-hand turn. I mean, we gotta keep our businesses open,
I mean,
period.
even with the light there, you've already got the turn lane to turn off of there. You're not changing anything there other than taking out
Yeah.
the part to get back
And
on.
the takeoff lane.
And the other side also. You're not changing anything. The stuff is already there.
I think the argument just comes that with it being a partial project and the overpass itself not coming in, you know, that's maybe the argument we're looking at. Is it? I think Leroy's right in the way we looked at it too. Is it may not affect the on-off traffic from 52, but it definitely is a traffic flow for the city there. I mean, it gives us that basically that square of traffic that from the new interchange to the proposed overpass and through in that whole area that has got to be a benefit to the businesses. So, you know, then the question is, well,
I guess.
if
I-
MnDOT doesn't
the
look at it that
businesses
way-
say that they don't see any value in that, so.
I don't know if all of them
You know?
feel. I don't know if all of them feel that way. But you know, then the question is.
I think it's two unrelated things myself.
It just seems like that's such an integral part of the project and how it's put together that you know is that the justification then that
You know,
if
I
you
don't,
can do
I don't think
something
MnDOT
now-
said that we're backing away from supporting, you know, an overpass there someday, or, you know, our participation in there.
Well, no, and that's
You
what
know,
we're saying.
and I think
Until that
there's even-
happens,
and I
though.
think there's even, you know.
We're looking
we
for
do
that.
have to look at the
We're looking
development
for
that
that
would
interim,
generate.
interim
Right.
time
Right.
until
Right.
that overpass is justified by traffic flow. Someday could be too
But-
late.
But
for the
that
business.
overpass really isn't related to the issue of getting people on and off the highway there,
but it's-
especially with the, you know, we're building the complete frontage road system. I mean, that's the other issue. You know, when we did this project, and actually we pushed it to the limit to try to improve the safety in this corridor as much as we could, you know, we ended up building more than what was put in on that, you know, application to move those frontage roads farther down the corridor. We made a complete connection on the west side. You know, there could have been things that we would have done just to cut costs that we didn't do because we are committed to improve the safety of this corridor through Cannon Falls. And I think this just diminishes the investment because I think you'd have a lot of traffic using that right turn, and you've got conflicts there. And I think in good conscience, looking for public safety, I don't know how we could support.
So if we can't get anything with that, if the answer is no, I mean, what can we do to offsite the best we can? I mean, well, I haven't talked about that part, but signage or whatever. I mean, is there things that we
definitely
can
sit down and work with
mean,
you on signage. I
identifying-
understand the issue with
identifying
with
businesses by
businesses, right.
name, you know, exit here for this, have them on both
we
ways,
could-
even
we could
saying, you know,
certainly
exit
sit down
coming.
and talk about,
I mean,
you
if
know,
we can't get this
business
part,
signage based on, you know, the changes in the interim stuff, you know.
right.
the
I mean,
new road
it's not the
system, way
answer
it's gonna
everybody
be
wants
set
to
up.
hear, but if the only answer we can get is we'll try to do what we can to increase visibility,
Yeah.
is MnDOT willing to
Yes,
work with
we would
us on some big
definitely be
signage
willing to
and,
work with
you know, identifying businesses and stuff like that? I know it's not the answer we want, but I'm just saying, if in the end we get to that point, at least we could try to do something.
Well, I mean, when the people start getting laid off and stuff, we'll just have them all call MnDOT and ask for jobs because, I mean, we're messing with people's livelihood here, you know, and, big time. I mean, we're talking a lot of people that'll be out of work in Cannon Falls. I mean, you know, this isn't that big a town, and the jobs that we have here are important, not only for them to take care of their families, but for a lot of different issues. And
And it's not just Cannon Falls people coming to town to work. It's
Right.
Right,
other-
they're coming
out
from a
of-
long ways.
Out of town too.
I mean, and so, I mean, we're doing everything we can to make sure our businesses, and so that Cannon Falls can survive, and we can grow with that project. But if you close businesses, I mean, if this is gonna close businesses, then shut the project down and we'll leave the stoplights there. I mean, we don't want businesses closed. We're not building this to have businesses closed. We're building this for the safety issue, but at the same time to keep, to design it to where we can get access to our businesses so that they don't have to close. So, I mean, so people aren't out of work.
Sure.
I mean, the economy's been so bad for the last 10 years, you know, and it's slowly trying to recover. Well, I mean, what are we gonna do? Throw it right back in a recession?
I know, this was a complicated project. There was a lot of, we did look at designs that had it in many different locations. I guess I would differ with the comment that MnDOT said to go to the south with it. I think that was part of the overall study, what the direction that came out of it. It wasn't MnDOT saying this is where you have to go with the location of it. You know, part of the issue was there was a lot of business impacts putting it, you know, at that north signal too. So it was a
think that was part of
complicated
the
study.
conversation. I mean, I was later, but it was that if you put it at that north site, you lose almost,
You know, and I know.
we
it
lose a lot
was
of businesses that are gonna be affected this way, so it was kind of a weighing of which is the worst impact, but,
Yeah.
you know,
I have to say, Greg, I'm hearing a lot of revisionist history, because maybe we weren't at the same Highway 52 meetings on some of this, but,
I guess we heard it different.
and if you recall, I was fairly vehement about a few things, and you guys aren't terribly cooperative.
Greg, do you have anything to add from the county?
I think you got a tough job there, but, I have to come back a little bit to say that you did some adjustments and made it better out there and spent more money. I find that a little condescending because the reason you had to make adjustments and tie things back together and do things different is because you didn't put that bridge in there. and you didn't go with the regional plan. So, if you did do more, I guess I appreciate it, but everything I have followed through this whole thing is in there. I don't see that we got more or something different.
Well, I guess part of the comment on the north end where, you know, where I was referring to is, you know, really the need for that full backage road to existing 24 would have been based on putting the overpass in, because that blocks off or cuts off the frontage road. So I mean, really, theoretically, we could have not put in all of that backage road now, and because there's still a connection there with the frontage road on the west side. So that was part of what I was referring to there, just to clarify. So.
Greg, do you have anything to add from the county's perspective?
I was at a lot of those meetings too, and the way I remember, at one point we were looking at putting the interchange at the northern intersection with 24. But when they actually built the thing out to full size, and we had a public meeting, and it had such an adverse impact on all of the businesses on the north side.
We'd have lost a lot.
We would have lost a lot.
We'd have lost Camp Hall, Subway, Over America.
I remember the motel on the west side was going to have to lose its canopy because the ramp was going to be right in front of the door. And basically, the businesses and everybody that was there said, boy, when you look at this thing at full size at this location, this just doesn't work. And then putting it to the south made sense to do that.
Well, I think most everybody was in favor of the interchange, and the southern point was the better point, but that's not what we're concerned with here.
Right.
When we discussed that project, there was gonna be that overpass at the northern light and linking everything up. Not ideal for these folks, I know, but now we're not even getting that. Why can't we do something in the interim?
Yeah, I think the general question is what the council's saying, and I think you see it everywhere in the cities. I mean, you see a lot of places where you have entrance ramps coming on, people having to get on that same road to take the next exit, you know, right on 494 when you get on to 55 there. I mean,
Yeah,
all that
55,
stuff is.
Yeah, all the time there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same situation. And so we're just saying, I mean, why can't we look at that, study it, see
Right.
what would the impact be?
36.
Let me address that. The other thing that, if you remember, this project, the funding for this project came quick. I mean, we were still working on the final design, and all of a sudden MnDOT came up with another one of these grants, the SAM grant, Safety and Mobility. Now, the beauty of these grants is MnDOT has the opportunity to fund some really important projects by doing them. The killer with these grants, though, is when they come in real fast. They come fast. You don't have a whole lot of time. And on the county level, it kills us trying to react to these things because, we had to build the southeast collector, which we hadn't even finished design because the hospital said they wanted to build a hospital there, and without the southeast collector, there was no access to that hospital. Where that threw us into a tizzy, and the county spent another $5 million we didn't have planned on it because of these grants coming. When they come quick. But you have to, the good and the bad is, the good is the interchange got built. The bad is they don't give a whole lot of time for the public input. And I remember going to my county board kind of in the 11th hour. It's a matter of, are you supportive of doing a partial project? There wasn't a lot of time for public venting on it. There's no doubt about that. But the time was quick, and that's, again, so if you get a chance to talk to your governor or talk to your legislators, tell them we need some long-term stable transportation funding so we don't have to be jumping through these hoops and having these kind of decisions made where now everybody can't remember why did we cut part of it out or decide not to wait on part of it. But as far as solving this problem goes, one problem is when District 6 applied for that SAM grant, they competed against a lot of other projects throughout the state. And somebody in central office made the decision the money was going here based on a scoring system. The only thing I could ask, or I could ask MnDOT to consider, was part of that scoring system were the safety points that come from the project. There's certain, I don't know exactly how they came up with these points, but the project that they were analyzing was that we were going to get rid of 2 stop signals, 2 intersections, and put one interchange. And there's a certain, they had to come through with some kind of a safety analysis to figure out what the safety improvements were to do that. Maybe you could ask them to go back Can you run the numbers to find out what do the safety numbers look like if you get rid of 2 stop signals and 2 intersections, put in 1 interchange and right in, right outs, and ask them from a safety standpoint, what kind of points would that have generated? If it didn't change the position of this project, that it still would have been a funded project, then maybe MnDOT could say, well, some other project didn't lose out of this project, and they could change it and maybe leave these things in. I mean, I really don't know, but I think it's something you could ask them to do. The other thing I want to tell you is I hope you don't get mad at me for this, Greg, but when I stand here, I represent the county board, and I have certain authority of what I can and can't really promise and do and whatever, and Greg's in the same position. Greg represents MnDOT, he represents District 6, and unfortunately what's happening up in Hampton is in Metro. So those decisions in Metro and in decision aren't made by, in District 6 aren't made by the same people, and people who get on the borders like this get stuck when there is inconsistency within the 4,000 people within MnDOT. But the other thing I could ask you to is if the district can't do something, send a letter to the commissioner and express your reasons on why you would like to meet with the commissioner. He does actually have a staff that works on these certain types of issues to try to get involved, to try to help out when the district, as an engineer, Greg is doing what he's supposed to do. You guys aren't satisfied with that, talk to the commissioner. They have the person called an omnibus. They look into these things. They may be able to help you out. That's all I got.
Thanks, Greg.
Is that something we can do, Aaron?
Well, and that was going to be when Morris mentioned the legislative side is, go to the commissioner first and try to have the conversation with them, let them know that, we want to have this request considered for these reasons. We think there's, valid argument because of this. We see other examples of it, multiple places. Here's why. Let's see if we can't get an official response. Because, I agree. I mean, it's nice that Greg comes because he gets basically to speed up. And he's doing what, I would do if the council, directed me about some issue and I go to, the township and tell them, no, this is what our fire contract is, and they don't like it. It's not like I can say, well, okay, we'll do this instead, So, I mean, we're all just stuck in that kind of same situation.
Well, no, I understand Greg is the sacrificial limb tonight, but.
So that was going to be my recommendation at the end to kind of close this out, was that we have the official statement from District 6 that this is not something they're willing to consider. So then, as with anybody, if I tell somebody no, that they can't do this with their house, then they go to or whatever it is, they go to the council then to ask for something different. So then what I would say is I'd get a motion to, have staff contact the commissioner and the legislators and let them know that we'd like to have a meeting to discuss this and review it and see if we can't get something, on it that would be able to provide different direction that District 6 could follow.
Right. And Greg, we.
Red Wing there. What is your opinion on the right-hand turn lanes from other areas in the county? I mean, they talk about other highways. What is your opinion from a county engineer? Do you feel that this is a real safety problem when you do right-hand turns? Is this something you've dealt with or had concerns about?
I don't have four-lane freeways like 52, and I understand. A reason that we're having this discussion is the fact that MnDOT is not following its policies consistently between districts. And this issue of saying that they don't want any right turn lanes, they don't want any turn lanes within a certain distance of the beginning or the end of an on or an off ramp on a four-way freeway system is a statewide policy. And if they're going to have statewide policies, I think it's better to follow them than to say we're going to follow it here and we're not going to follow it there. Inconsistency in applying policy is what we end up with this situation. Well, gee, it's different in Hampton than it is here. So I do believe that there's a problem as traffic starts to get higher in the future. Mr. Mattson asked, what's the traffic going to do in the future? Well, I can't tell you if it's going to be 5%, but I'll tell you what, it's going to be a lot more and they're going to be going a lot faster. Yeah. So it's a situation, if you leave it in there now, someday in the future, you're going to start having accidents. And when you do start having accidents, then you can be in the same discussion. Well, now we want to get rid of them. The businesses still aren't going to like it.
The other thing, you make a good point there, is that there would be at least a little hope here if there was some kind of a study done. And it got put in now because of the flow of the traffic and the amount of traffic. And it would be another thing if they came back in 5 years and said, you know, the flow is getting out of hand. Now we've had 2 accidents this year down there. This is gonna have to be shut down. That's another thing. I think people would be more understandable to that, to know the whole overall picture. So I think that's a good point you made.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point there too, is if MnDOT does decide to move a little bit on this, based on your discussion with the Commissioner's office, I would assume part of it's gonna be, as soon as we have an accident, or as soon as there's a problem there, MnDOT's gonna come in and they're just gonna take it out without any more further discussion, because they do that. So,
I mean,
yeah.
concerned about public safety.
Right.
And I understand your point there, but you also get into the balance of, do you want to prevent accidents, or do you want to react to them? So,
Well, you keep bringing up safety, and it just keeps going over in my mind because 20 years ago, I was involved with different people that got killed at that intersection. I was involved with the people that went to the state and said we needed overpass. So I've known the whole history of this thing, and you keep saying safety. It's always been a safety issue out there. People have died out there. We always had a wreath there, a cross out there. The thing that I gotta tell you that does irritate me though is that why we kept being told that we are 5 years down the road, and then we are 7 years down the road. And in the meantime, northern Rochester, at this time, ended up with 3 overpasses down there. And of course, we did the thing at Pine Island when we were supposed to be top on the list. So it's a little bit hard for us to sit here, and I would like the state to maybe do a little better job of giving people feeling their part involved, and getting their input and stuff. I think the state gets a lot of negative reaction whenever I talk to somebody about a state issue. They say, don't even talk to them. I think the state has a little bit of an image problem. I don't like that because I would rather feel the city and the county and the state are all in this together. But sometimes we don't feel that we're being represented. It is a concern. Thank you.
I'd just like to say, Greg, we're not here to beat up on you. I mean, we've got a lot of people, our business owners and our citizens here. I mean, we're here to represent them and to get what's best for them. I mean, and safety is still the issue. And we're, you know, I know how you feel. I've been on that side of the microphone, and you know you're out of the punching bag tonight, unfortunately. And you know, if there's a way that we can work it out, I mean, even on an interim basis, if it could be done until such time as, so that these folks out here would have time to plan for the future if it looks like this isn't going to work. But I mean, if we could get it in an interim basis, kind of like what they've got up there in Hampton on County 86, that would give them a couple, 2 or 3 years, 4 years before the other portion comes over. And then if there is problems, then, I mean, you know, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but then if there would happen to be a problem, then we can say, okay, you know, it is too dangerous. Maybe we need to go ahead and get it out of here at this point. But I mean, if there's a way that we could work with you guys to get it to an interim basis, it gives these people time to plan. I mean, because they have, you know, where they're located and where other things are going to be located in the future. You know, we don't know at this point. I mean, because the county's going to grow, or the city's going to grow. And as it does, they may decide they want to go to a different location anyway. Even if you do this, it may knock down some of the business, but at the same token, it gives them a fighting chance to plan for the future. And that's all we're asking at this time.
you know, and I think Greg's comments were good too, as far as, you know, there is an office at MnDOT out of the Commissioner's office, the omnibus office, and, you know, this would be the type of issue that would
And we appreciate it, and I think we'll have to look into doing something like that.
And just one more comment too. I can't, you know, I think Greg talked about it a little bit with the different programs, and it does. I understand your frustration and question is about, you know, you end up seeing different projects coming out, and it is a complicated business. There's different programs, and, you know, not to put the blame on the legislature, but there's different legislative programs that have different criteria for funding selection. And, you know, I know the one that kind of sticks in everyone's call a little bit is a project down by Pine Island. And that project, the one we're talking about, had this program called SAM, Safety and Mobility. And this project, you know, was a great project for that and competed very well. The one down there was kind of the first one that came out that had economic development tied to it. Now, I'm not going
not gonna
to
go there.
comment about it.
Don't open that
we
can
all-
of
I
worms.
think
Don't
we all
open
know
that
that
can of
issue.
worms.
But you know, so it was a different program with different criteria. And, you know, so, and it's hard for them if they look at it, and it's hard for me to stand up and explain it to people, you know, because, I mean, I agree, this project here, you know, we'd been working with you guys in the county and developing this, and, you know, that one kind of jumped up on the list based on the criteria of that program. But, you know, it's a big, complicated business, and there's different things happening, and it makes it hard for the public to follow sometimes, so, anyway,
Thanks, guys.
thank you.
Are any of the business owners want to speak? I know,
If I could, I just have one comment. The thing that bothers me, and I think bothers them, is that MnDOT can come at it from whole cloth, as if we're designing a virgin area and starting over. And all those comments are fine, but we have multi-million dollars worth of businesses here that are going to be adversely affected. And I see exceptions all throughout the state. You go down 35E in St. Paul and you got to go 40 miles an hour. That, to me, looks like a freeway, but you go 40. On 52, after you cross 494, you go down to 55 miles an hour. Well, if there's a safety hazard, maybe we should lower the speed as it comes through Cannon Falls then, so that if somebody was exiting, they could rightfully exit. It just bothers me that we leave the segment of people that have devoted their lives decades worth, and we're talking millions of dollars from McDonald's to Super America on down. And I tell you, I can't prove it, but it'll be on tape. Let's go out there in 5 years if nothing is done. And I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of dark businesses. This is not an idle comment. It's the truth. And I think it's just unfortunate that rather than seek solutions, we go on statistical design standards. And I appreciate where they're coming from. And if we're out in North Dakota designing a new community, everything that MnDOT has said makes sense. But it makes no sense given what the reality on the ground is. And that's what irritates.
thanks. Okay, if nobody else wants to speak on this, okay.
I'm Greg Jablonski, and I own the Sold to Mexico property there. And I guess what I'd like to say about this is that it kind of proves that hindsight is more valuable. I think we're at a crossroads now where we can remedy that. And I guess what I'm hearing from Greg at MnDOT is that no is the answer. We're not willing to look at it. We're not willing to give you the facts on why we can't. And I'm not seeing why lanes can't be put in to access these businesses. And for all the good reasons I've heard right here. And so I just don't buy into this, that it can't be done. And I guess that's just my statement about the ingress, and I believe there should be egress lanes too. And I guess I think there's plenty of distance there. And I think for the money that was spent purchasing what I will term the ditch, I think we could have had some ingress and egress there, and that they would be done in a safe way. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, with that, do have a request for council action. I'm going to modify a little bit. Chair will take a motion to approve support of a right-in access at the site of the North Lights, and that we put together a presentation to speak with the commissioner and legislature if need to be to see what we've got to do to try to remedy this situation.
I'll second that.
Hey, Aaron, can we contact Matt Schmidt on this too and ask him for some help in this?
Yep.
Well, that would be, well,
Maybe our legislator stuff.
all of ours.
Yep. Okay, I have a motion by Merle, and a second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
We're willing to come to anything that you want us to come to. Just let us know, okay? Or
Yep.
anyone else that we can contact as business owners further
If you-
to help put momentum behind it, we'd like to do that.
Yep, if you get with Aaron, and then he can get in contact with you guys to work on that, and then work through county commissioners, our state legislatures, and then whatever we got to do to work on that.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you.
Okay, that moves us on to item 8B, which is the application for payment number 1 of Trunk Highway Utility Crossing on 19. Thanks, guys.
Just two quick comments on this stuff. It's all good. It all worked out really well. This thing here, I went down to Aaron and met with him for quite a while today about our budget stuff. And I was looking this over last weekend. I see we allotted like 48,000 and the project went like to 80,000. And I talked to Aaron about that. And I just wanted to point out the good things about a budget being over for once. Mr. Mulvihill decided to come in and work with us on the future of that project up there. So the bigger mains got put in, everything got set up for the future. And Mr. Mulvihill, basically, part of his assessment was this extra. So I just wanted to say good job on the part of thinking ahead on Public Works and Greg, and for the first time, we've got a double the bill, and I liked it.
And I also told you that we had rock cost. I mean, we weren't expecting it, but we budgeted for it.
Right.
You know, the bid didn't include it, but we knew that it was probably going to be there. So we did also have extra cost because of that rock, but you know, we had the money for it. So it was just that they didn't bid it that way, but we knew that it was probably there. So there was that too.
Right. So I make a motion to approve that.
Motion by Leroy. Do I have a second? Second by Merle to make payment number 1 for Trunk Highway Utility Crossing on Highway 19. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to item 8C, which is the application for payment number 6 of the East Side Improvement Project.
Yeah, that thing, I just wanted to make another comment on that too, is that I talked to Aaron about all this stuff, where we were at, where the overcharges were, how things worked out. And I just felt like I had to make a comment tonight that this East Side project actually came in under budget. And it just made me proud to be a part of the government, and the government actually came in with a project under budget once. So I wanted to thank Tom and Greg. Many times I talked to these guys or called them, and they're all in meetings with Henches. And I'd like to also say thank you to Henches for honoring their contract on the part of the project, and for all the good work that everybody did to finally have a major project that came in under budget. I think is really something.
We like under budget.
So I make a motion to approve the payment there.
We have a motion by Leroy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Bill to approve application for payment number 6 for the East Side Improvement Project. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to reports. Justin? Brenda? Greg?
Thank you, Leroy. That's good to hear. East Side project's pretty much wrapped up due to the weather. Most of the work is done. We did miss a couple of yards getting sodded on the east side homes down there by the cornfield, but that will get done in the spring. The project will be open over the winter, so we can do a walkthrough in the spring and get stuff cleaned up, probably add some gravel to them streets too, and get that last yard sodded. Everything will be seeded this year. But if there are anything that comes up that the residents see on that east side project, let City Hall know, let me know, so we can get it on the list to get it addressed in the spring.
One thing, Greg, I made a comment to Aaron, I'm really glad we didn't tie Minnesota Street into the whole project, or we'd have had that all dug up for
That
school.
would have been a nightmare, and we'd still be under
Yeah,
construction.
so it really worked out well that we waited with that to do that separately. Otherwise, we added them 11 houses on, I understand, it took a little longer, but when you're dealing with power companies and gas companies and everything else, who knows how long it gets tied up. But I think everybody really did a good job up there.
Thanks.
Only to mention, the Planning Commission will meet Monday night, December 2nd, rather than their regular meeting night, December 9th. That's all.
Thanks. Chief?
Couple of things. First, hard to believe, but Thanksgiving will be next week. With that, on Saturday will be Deck the Falls. I think the mayor's probably going to talk a little bit more about some of the activities with it. But we will have the parade that evening that will start at 5 and at the city parking lot with the lighting the tree after that. Just remind people that there will be a little bit of delay while we get some of the floats and stuff through for that event. Second thing is Police Commission will meet on December 3rd following the council meeting. That's all I have.
Well, I'm hoping for a light winter, at least in 2013 here. We got hammered pretty hard in May there, as you recall, and I'm still feeling it right here in the budget, and I'm my fingers crossed for the next couple of weeks, and hopefully things go well. But it is what it is. We're ready for it, whatever happens. Thank you.
Thanks. Merle?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Nothing. I just wanted to comment. I was tempted this evening to bring a document to read, but I figure Robbie and Justin probably wouldn't appreciate it as the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. And I think our southern folks don't really care for that, but just thought I'd mention that. That's it.
Leroy?
No, nothing.
Nothing, sir.
I'd just like to say thanks to the police department for the job you guys do. I got an email from the superintendent for the good job that you guys have done with situations there and the professionalism and dedication that you guys display and the passion that you display for your job. And I'd just like to say, that we're proud of that, and, the services that you guys provide for our community, keeping it safe is second to none, and it's often underappreciated. So thanks, and that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate that. Aaron did share the emails that occurred with that with me. Personally, I want to thank you and the council for the support you've given me as chief. But I also want to extend the thanks to my department. I know the officers appreciate the support of the council and the statements that you guys have made over the months and years. I will be, as long as you gave me that entrance, I will be bringing a couple of awards to the December meeting. December 3rd, we're going to be recognizing a civilian who this summer jumped in and saved a youth that was drowning in the river, and then one of the officers. So,
Thanks. Now with that, the chair will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And we'll take about a 5-minute intermission, and we'll start the work session at 8:15.
5 is all we